This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 238 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's episode is all about travel for a sporting event, travelling to play some kind of sport. I love any kind of travel that's for a really specific reason because I often find it has kind of benefits and little bonuses that you don't get if you're travelling as a tourist or to travel. Whereas if you travel for something specific, in this case a sporting event, there's often interesting surprises and all kinds of things that happen that don't happen ordinarily. As for me, I've not actually travelled to participate in a sporting event myself. I did play plenty of netball and tennis as a kid, but nothing that actually got me travelling, unfortunately. But as an adult, when I lived abroad, my boyfriend at the time actually took up kendo, which was very interesting. It's if you don't know kendo, it's a Japanese martial art. I'm not going to describe it very well, but it's the one where they use a big sword-like stick made from bamboo. It's a fascinating sport full of interesting rituals, and he actually started learning it in Japan. But when we moved to Slovakia and later to Germany, he found tournaments to attend. Who knew? I didn't expect him to find kendo tournaments in Slovakia or nearby, but he did. And I do have really great memories of going to a kendo tournament in the suburbs of Brno in the Czech Republic, their second city. We drove there from Bratislava for the weekend, and I loved it because you could meet interesting people from across Europe who'd all gathered there. Many were expat Japanese, or at least they were interested in Japan, because otherwise they weren't involved with kendo generally. And so, we got to talk Japan stuff, and that was cool. And it was situated, this tournament, in suburban Brno, where you definitely wouldn't usually go as a tourist. So it was just different and heaps of fun. Anyway, so today's episode features a range of, how can we call it, sporty kind of travel. And the first guest is actually a very experienced player of darts. Now, is darts a sport? Well, people make a lot of money as darts professionals, so I'm calling yes. And so here is Tim Tricker telling me about some of his experiences travelling to play darts.
When I used to play darts, I was playing across Europe. I would be going abroad sort of like once or twice a month. And EasyJet, Ryanair used to do... the flight was £9.99 each way, and it was a penny for your tax and your baggage, so £20 exactly return.
Wow! And
you could fly to pretty much anywhere in Europe. And the last dart tournament I went to was the Czech Open 2 years ago in Prague. And the reason I used to go to all these tournaments was because it was £20 for the flight. It was £20, about £25 for the coach from Oxford to either Stansted or Gatwick. Mm-hmm. And then it was, you're looking at about £60 to £80 for the hotel for 2 nights, 3 nights, because generally hotels in England are expensive compared to on the continent. Yeah. So I was thinking for about £100, £120, I could be abroad and entered into the tournament. Whereas on a night out in Oxford, because drinks are expensive in nightclubs, you could easily spend that in one night.
And you haven't even gone anywhere.
Exactly. I've gone sort of like 2 miles up the road into town. Yeah, I've had a good time, but
not as interesting
to show for it. Whereas going on these sort of starting adventures, I had one. It was a good laugh being with a load of friends who I know, who I've met through darts, but it's also experienced new cultures, experiencing new cities. It's like since I went to Norway, I know a few people who have gone to Norway, but I don't know a single person who's ever explored Tunsberg.
No, I'd never even heard of it until you told me. So there you go. And that's the thing. That like travelling for something like a darts tournament is how you get to really see all these other places that are not high on the tourist routes, or you just get to visit different parts of a city, and it's an awesome way to travel.
Oh, definitely. It's like I've ended up in sort of like in Belgium. I've ended up in St Nicholas, which the only reason I knew existed was because the town next to Oxford, called Abingdon, is twinned with it, and we got these big road signs as you enter towns saying like, it would be like Abingdon twinned with loads of different places.
Yeah.
And St Nicholas is on that. I'd never heard of it until I'd heard of it, but wouldn't
Never
know,
thought about it.
couldn't
Yeah.
point to it on a map. But they had the Belgian Open darts was there, and it was in St Nicholas. So I thought, oh, I'll go and have a look. Again, a beautiful city. I got a lovely cathedral in the centre, and it was just like a very sort of picturesque city, very sort of like nice old architecture there. You know, it was just sort of like wanting to experience, thinking, yeah, it's a brilliant place. Whereas like, all the locals in Abingdon have probably had never heard of it other than seeing it on a sign.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. How wonderful to actually go there. Oh, I love that, because it's kind of taking the travel decision out of, it's making it for a completely different reason. And you know, regardless of where it is, let's just go and see what it's like. How did you go in? Like, were you successful with your competitions over the years?
Not really. I did have certain successes. At the Swedish Open, I got to the pairs semi-final.
Oh, cool.
So I've done really well there. And the second time I went to the Czech Open, the first time I got to the quarterfinals. The second time I got to the last 32. And considering these tournaments do have sort of like 400 or 500 people playing in it,
That's awesome.
but you know, I'm a massive sort of dart fan. I've been brought up with like my parents both playing darts for local teams, so you know it's been sort of ingrained in me as a sport I should like, and I do happen to like it.
Yeah, right.
I got, when I was very young, I sort of got into playing. I ended up playing because we have a county system of darts over here, playing for the youth side for Oxfordshire, and from there you sort of get to meet youth players from other sort of counties. So we sort of like all bonded together because we sort of grew up playing darts against each other. You know, it was never like a bitter rivalry. It was like, oh, we don't like people from Kent or Essex or anything like that. You know, they ended up being sort of really close friends. You know,
Oh, cool.
over time you sort of develop really sort of close bonds, and you know, from there we sort of, as we sort of grew up and sort of come out of the youth system, we would going to tournaments together. You know, sort of meeting up at airports or flying together, rooming together. You know, sort of a lot of camaraderie there.
Yeah.
Sort of between us all. So that was sort of made it easier to sort of integrate myself into these tournaments. But yeah, I was a lot better when I was younger. I was playing and beating some of these players, which, like, if you watch darts on TV, some of the younger players you see, I was playing them, and some of them I was actually beating.
Huh, cool. So, just like with my kendo story, Tim liked being able to explore these lesser-known places through travelling for his darts tournaments, and got to meet, you know, interesting, like-minded people. So, you know, really hits those benefits of travelling for a niche reason like sports. So, my next guest is Eugene Devereux, and he has a different and much more physical, like really physical sporting event he's travelled for. He has competed in adventure races in Ireland, and they sound really rather grueling to me, but there are definitely some really cool benefits as well.
So I started doing like adventure races in Ireland here a couple of years back. These are kind of becoming more popular here, where like you do maybe a run or a trail run, some section on a bike, and then a short section in a kayak. So it's like kind of like a triathlon, but there's no swimming and there's a kayak section instead. But yeah, myself and a few friends decided that we'd do this event called Gale Force West. So it's over in the west of Ireland, and if you don't know, the west is really picturesque, really kind of bleak, wild Atlantic. It's just a really cool part of Ireland. But it was quite challenging because you had to do like a section running, then a section on a bike, then more running, then on the bike, and then you get to this mountain. And I didn't realize that this mountain was so kind of big.
Oh no.
Yeah, so Croagh Patrick. This is one of the biggest mountains, I think, in Ireland. It's 760 meters or 764 meters high. So there's quite an incline. Yeah, so because you're kind of doing this midway through the event, it takes its toll.
Yeah,
Takes its toll.
You've already been going for a while.
Yeah, but anyway, got up the mountain, got back down, and just a really, Croagh Patrick would be kind of known for its as a kind of a pilgrimage mountain. There's this tiny little church actually on the top.
Oh,
I don't know how they built it up there or when, but there's a tiny little kind of chapel on the top of the mountain, and it would be pretty famous in Ireland. But it was cool to do that as part of the event and kind of see everywhere from that height, and to really kind of take it in, because I think a lot of Irish people they don't appreciate kind of the landscape and the niceness, if that's a word, of our country. You know, they think they have to go away, and I'd be fall victim to this as well, where, you know, you think the grass is always greener and you don't kind of see what's on your own doorstep. But like when you're in the west of Ireland and you see places like that, it's just amazing, and it helps you kind of appreciate the country much more.
Yeah, and I guess doing that kind of adventure race, you are moving, I mean, relatively slowly, different to, you know, driving or something. So you get to really, really appreciate the landscape. Yeah,
no, that was amazing. So that was kind of my first, I suppose, real physical challenge, and that kind of ties in with travel and adventure. It's good fun as well. Like there's usually a party afterwards that night and wherever it's on, and a lot of people would hang around, and you know, it's good to meet people that way and hear their stories of how the day went.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. It's just awesome that Eugene realised he could explore, you know, really beautiful parts of Ireland, because Ireland really is gorgeous, by doing these adventure races. And I know last time we spoke, he was planning to enter some more. So I hope he's been able to, because what a beautiful way to explore a beautiful country and, you know, beyond as well. So my final guest on this sporting episode is Emma Lovell, who has done all kinds of sporty travel, actually, as it turns out, but we spoke specifically about her experience as a high school student travelling with a water polo team.
Yes, I was 16. It was my first trip without my family, and so the school had organised a water polo tour in New Zealand. So very cool. When you travel with school or university, things are heavily subsidised. Like now, upon reflection, the trip was very reasonable. 16 days travelling. We were billeted, so we were staying with families in New Zealand, and the trip total was $2,500. Yeah, we went over there. It started in the South Island and then went up to the North Island on a bus, and there were about 50 of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really awesome. I started playing water polo in Year 7 and loved it. Actually, was talking about it last night, and it's an excellent anger management if you've never done it. It's a pretty rough sport.
Yeah, I've seen it. It looks pretty rough. I'm a bit scared, I think, to play water polo.
Yeah. And I remember in one of our first games our early games were in Dunedin, which is beautiful, playing against the local school who had billeted us. It's really funny because you stay with the family, you get on really well, and then you get in the pool and you're like, you're the enemy. But I remember splashing my coach in the face because she didn't really like what she was her game plan.
So what was it like staying with the local people? So this is your first time in another country. Were you nervous at all, or were you just excited?
Well, first time in another country on my own.
Oh, sorry. Yes, true.
With family. So it was actually probably the flight that was a bit more. I'd always travelled, you know, with my parents and my siblings. So me and my brother used to like hold hands at takeoff. I really love takeoff. I still get a little bit like, ooh, when it happens. And so I asked my friend if I could hold her hand.
And she said yes?
Yeah, she was lovely. It was a big deal. And for many of the students, being 16, it was their first trip overseas.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was staying with the families was brilliant because it was just they would try and show you a little bit of their local area, just getting to see what everyday life was like. I mean, the first place we did stay was in a little sort of motel-y thing, so we had a few days before we went, because when we were down in Queenstown, that was more touristy. But from Dunedin on, we were with the families, and and you were billeted with one of your friends, so you got to know them better too. One of your friends from the team.
How else? I mean, did you spend a lot of time playing water polo compared to being able to see, look around New Zealand, or was there a good balance? Did they build, a reasonable amount of exploration into your timetable?
I don't know, like kudos to Mr. Ewings. Shout out to Mr. Ewings. But it was an amazing itinerary. Like looking back for the cost of the trip, we saw so much. Like we did in Rotorua, we went to the Maori village and did that, going and seeing the geezers, and had the dance show. In Queenstown, we went to the Skyline restaurant, which is up on the gondola. And, this is the thing. I remember this trip. This is half a lifetime ago. I'm 33. I remember this trip so vividly. A lot of time on buses. We did drive. So we did try and play the game, make the noise of the animal you see. And in New Zealand, it's sheep. So that game lasted about 5 minutes. It was bar.
There would be a lot of barring in New Zealand on a drive.
Yeah. Lots of, that's the fun thing on a trip when you get, on a road trip, if it's a road trip, to the max, because you're with
50 of your mates.
Yeah, laughing, telling stories, just so a lot of fun on the bus. But no, we went to the Te Papa Museum in Wellington. We had a day to explore in Auckland. I think probably we played a game or two in each place.
Right.
So we think we kind of went to 5 schools. I remember I can remember the pool areas as well. But it was Dunedin and Rotorua. I think the local kids really took us in the most.
Right.
And really, they'd arranged a party, like a house party in each place. So
Aww.
they played the water polo, but then we got to hang out. And there's a couple of people I'm still in touch with.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. Because this is pre-Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, it was MSN chat back then, Amanda.
Oh, yes. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, MSN chat. So I used to chat with Tuck. He runs now an adventure business in Rotorua, so whitewater rafting, and
cool.
Yeah, shout out to him. So they just, really amazing itinerary, and would not be able to plan that trip of New Zealand myself.
That's so cool, and amazing to do it with 50 teenagers. That's really very impressive. And
the parents who joined us thought about that, but
yeah, I bet. Okay, now because we're talking sports, I have to ask: did you win many of your games?
No, yeah, I know.
It's not the answer I was going for.
No, I know. I mean, look, they were friendlies, but
yeah, but you still wanted to win.
Yeah, I know. I did. That's probably why I splashed my coach in the face, because I was a bit frustrated. I mean, especially the guys' team. So we had a girls' team, guys' team. The guys' teams, and I remember the Rotorua, some of those guys would have been able to go into national teams. They were really
interesting.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Water polo in school is really competitive, and, it's a sport you don't often hear about until you get into high school.
Right, true.
And this was a few years after the 2000 Olympics, when the Australian ladies team won gold.
Of course, that was a bit more popular already. Yeah.
It's really gaining momentum. And funnily enough, I was at the Gold Coast airport picking up my dad the other day, and the Australian water polo team were walking out.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it's still there. But no, we didn't. Because we were a mixed mash as well of age groups, so I think we weren't as used to playing together.
Right.
Whereas that might have been their set team. So
yes.
we weren't used to, and it is a sport where you really need to, I mean, all team sports, you need to communicate.
Yeah.
And have a good understanding. So but it was a bit because you are going, it's just for fun, it's for the experience, but I'm very competitive, so I was a little bit disgruntled. But it's probably why I'm highlighting the other parts of the trip.
Oh, I'm sorry I asked.
No, it was, I don't know, I loved that we were there, and I was very proud. You wear your jacket, you get a sports jacket, and unless you're going to be an elite sport person, you don't really get those opportunities. So
Yeah.
You know, if you
It's
have
very
some
special.
young listeners, I'd say if you're in school or university, and I've gone on to actually, I used to go to university games, which is a thing. I don't know
Oh,
if you knew that.
yes. Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
came to Perth a few years ago.
Yes. Yes, it did. Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
actually went on to play water polo at university games.
Right. Oh, how cool.
Played in the
Yeah.
Gold Coast. I've played in, and then where else did we host? Oh no, yeah, it was twice in the Gold Coast. And then I played soccer at the Eastern University Games, and then I snowboarded at the Snow Uni Games.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
take the opportunity. You don't have to be the best. I guess that's the message. You don't have to be the best at the sport, but if there is an opportunity to travel with a sport, they build amazing itineraries. They build in the culture. It's a really fun and different way to travel.
As you probably remember, I've also had the chance to travel to Germany as a high school student on a language trip rather than a sporting trip, but I do know firsthand that staying with local families at that age is enormous fun, and also a huge learning curve, actually, especially when you don't speak their language. But anyway, but Emma's water polo trip does sound amazing. I've also actually been looking into a New Zealand trip lately since the Australian and New Zealand borders are now, well, sometimes open, so I listened with extra interest. Now, I'm actually going to do an episode soon on travelling to watch sport, because that is something I've also done, actually partly by accident, but you'll have to wait to hear about that. So anyway, I would love to hear about any sporting experiences while you've been travelling, whether you're playing or watching. So do let us know in the Facebook group. Don't forget to head to Thoughtful Travellers on Facebook. There's a link in the show notes, or just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook and you can find us there. Thank you very much to all the fabulous guests today. It was really interesting to hear about your travelling for sport experiences. So huge thanks first to Tim Tricker, who is a member of the Thoughtful Travellers group, just an ordinary listener who I love talking to listeners. They're my favourite guests. Sorry to everyone else. I also chatted with Eugene from the Irish Bootstrapper blog and podcast. And if you want more of his amazing accent, you can find him at irishbootstrapper.com. And last but absolutely not least, I chatted with the fabulous Emma Lovell from the Lovely Travels podcast. You can find more about her at lovelytravels.com. The show notes for this episode are at notaballerina.com/238. So I look forward to hearing more about your sporting and travel crossovers. And as always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.